So I want to share with you a question that was asked to me earlier today. I had a client ask this question. I thought it was a great one, and you might be interested in it also. So this was a lady who's thinking about buying another house. Like all of us, we all want a new house. We all want something bigger, nicer, fresher, more like what we want, more in our design layout, whatever. There's something going on. We all kind of want a new house all the time. But her question was, when is it a good idea to buy? When will prices start to come back down? Well, I forgot to turn my notifications off, so let me mute my notifications. Sorry about that. That wasn't very professional. Oh, it won't pop up, so I guess we may have to just deal with them. I can't get it to go into work mode. But her question was, when will prices go down and when will homes become more affordable? And we had a really good discussion about that. I thought I might as well just share it with you because this is the question we all want to know. And really, I think there's four things that we need to look for in terms of home affordability. The first one is kind of separate, but really, really driven to the cost of houses and the affordability of houses. The last three really have to do with the prices of houses. So, in terms of affordability, the biggest thing driving the problems with affordability right now in houses is that interest rates are just so high. And because they're just so high, it's driven people who would love to buy out of the market. And it's just made it too unaffordable to do that. I know personally, my family, our exact situation is this. Our exact situation is that we would love to get a new home, but interest rates have pushed us out of the market. So now we're in a spot where we have to wait until incomes increase again to offset the new cost of interest. Um, I don't think interest rates are coming down for a while. Earlier this year, people were talking about six, seven interest rate cuts from the Fed, but I don't think it's going to happen. And there's a few reasons that I don't think it's going to happen. One, the economy is still going fairly well. The stock market keeps going up. Unemployment is staying relatively low historically. It's higher than it's been, but it's relatively low. And then not only that, but also there's still hiccups in from time to time in inflation numbers. And as long as we start seeing inflation numbers staying high and not coming back down, the Fed is not going to lower rates again. They really want to have a strong dollar. They want to see rates be on the higher side, or not really rates be on the higher side, but inflation be on the higher side. Their inflation goal is 2%, but that's not just like 2% and then it's done. It's 2% for a prolonged period of time. And that prolonged period of time means it has to average out to 2% for a while. So even when we hit 2%, they're not necessarily going to be like, all right, things are great, let's cut rates. They're going to keep it there and they're going to try and manage that. So I don't think we're going to see rate cuts this year. I don't think and there's a really good chance we won't see a rate cut next year unless something happens in the economy that causes it. Maybe unemployment goes up or inflation really ticks down, which has to happen, or we're not going to get a rate cut. So I would not be one sitting out here telling you to expect interest rates to come down. I expect them to continue to stay up. So that kind of deals with the affordability issue, but what about just house prices on the whole? Well, I think there's three things that are going to cause housing prices to stay high and potentially even continue to grow in price. One of those things is interest rates also, but not so much the fact that interest rates affect payment, because higher interest rates, you would think, would cause would cause prices to go down because people shop by payment. But what I do mean by interest rates is that as long as interest rates are high, there's going to be a group of people who choose not to sell their home. They're going to choose to stay where they're at instead of moving out of their house. And because they choose to stay where they're at instead of moving out of their home, what's going to happen is you're going to have houses that would otherwise be on the market that are not going to be on the market. So now you've got a problem with getting new sellers to the market. And until that changes, and until we have sellers coming to the market, ask any realtor, their biggest trouble over the last few years has been getting sellers. So until we get sellers coming to the market willing to sell their house, you're not going to see prices slow down. It's just basic supply and demand at this point. The demand is too high and the supply is too low. So really, what we need to do is we need to get more sellers on the market, or we need to get less buyers. But I don't really think we're going to see less buyers. I think we're going to see more sellers before we see less buyers. Again, with the caveat of if something goes bad in the economy, then you will see less. Then you will see less buyers. People won't have the money and the ability to do so. But that's one thing, right? So That's a really big part of it is there's just not enough homes on the market. Another reason there's not enough homes on the market is interest rates are locking people in, but then also a lot of places there's not enough homes on the market because government just won't let you build enough. I forget who it was. I believe it was Vox did a story once talking about how liberal Democrat policies have caused a housing shortage. And I thought that was really interesting that they were saying the Democrat policies of not letting builders build enough houses has caused the housing shortage in California because they're a very liberal news source at the same time. So they're kind of giving a very good understanding and explanation of how some of the policies we've had where you can't build enough houses are really causing it. So in these expensive areas, there's just not enough housing, and that's not going to change it. But what about in an area where I'm in, Cleveland, Ohio, not an expensive area, a very affordable area to live? Well, I still don't think that there's enough houses on the market, especially in the areas people want to live. The suburb I live in is an eastern suburb, and it's not. There's just nowhere left to build. And, like, there's nowhere left to go. So if you're in the Menor area, or Lake County area, that like there's nowhere else to build where we are. You have to go out of the suburbs and into more of the rural areas, and maybe not fully rural, but those in between areas that aren't quite suburb but aren't quite rural. So that's a major problem. There's just not enough housing. The second thing that would cause a slowdown in housing prices is if people aren't moving into the area anymore. Now, I'm in Cleveland. This isn't as big of a problem, but if you're in one of those areas where people are moving to regularly, like the Texases, one of the cities that was named was Nashville, Charlotte, those types of cities that are really popular, Florida, you're going to have a hard time with home prices because home prices are going to keep going up because, again, we've got one, there's not enough homes. Two, you're adding buyers. So if you're in a city or a region or an area where population growth is a common thing, your home prices are going to keep going up. And if you're a homeowner, that's good. If you're a buyer, that's not good. If you're a buyer and wanting a homeowner and wanting to buy a new home, then it's kind of a little bit of both. It's kind of a catch-22 in that you're going to win on the home you sell, but lose on the home you buy. So it kind of puts you in a problem. But those demographics are really important. If you have an area where you're gaining and seeing more people come versus an area where you're leaving and seeing population stagnate or even decrease, because people are migrating out, then you're going to maybe see a little bit of help, and you'll maybe then get a little bit of downward pressure on prices and see some prices go down. Good for buyers, not good for homeowners. And then I think the third thing and the third question that's going to ask in regards to when will home prices come down is completely when will the cash buyers disappear? So the cash buyers are one of the things really driving up prices, and a lot of times these cash buyers are out of area. So in the Midwest, we've seen this a lot. We've seen this a lot in the Great Plains states. Some of the more inexpensive places to live have gone up a lot in price because there's been outside money coming in. So while the population hasn't increased and people aren't necessarily moving to where I live, there has been money coming into the areas that have had historically low prices because people in California are saying, I can't afford a home here, so maybe I'll just be an absentee landlord and buy a home in the Midwest and buy a low cost home. Then you've also got the big investment banks buying up houses and building out their investment portfolio of single family homes. So I don't think we see home prices come down for a while outside of something strange happening in the economy. So what do you do if you're in a situation where you want to buy a home? Well, if you're a first time home buyer, what you just heard was go buy a house, but I don't want you to do that. I want you to make sure you can afford the home before you go buy it. Because if you go buy a home you can't afford, even if you got it at a good price relative to 5 years from now, if you can't afford it, you're not going to be able to upkeep it. You're not going to be able to maintain it. I always recommend having a 20% down payment. Now, depending upon interest rates, they're high now, so you might want to use the down payment. But depending on interest rates, I don't always care if you use the down payment, but I want to know before someone buys a home, I want them to know that they have the ability to save money and live below their means. Because once you move into a home, you could wake up one morning and have a five, six, seven, $8,000 bill just because the roof's decided to leak or the furnace decided to break. We had a furnace go out a year ago. We got a really cheap furnace for our home, and it was over $5 grand. It would easily cost us 10 grand today. So if you don't have the ability to save, that's going to bankrupt you and put you in really bad shape. So if you don't have 20% saved, whether you use it as down payment or not, have the 20% saved, then you can look to buy a home, maybe. That's the kind of like my first hurdle that I put people towards. But if you're in a situation where you're thinking, I want to buy this first home, as long as you can afford it, it might be a good time to go buy. Knowing that if the economy goes down, you still have this home to own for a long period of time and you'll be okay. Interest rates being high can always be refinanced. So if we do see the economy go down, there's a good chance that interest rates are going to come back down then. And if they do come back down, you could refinance, get a lower payment, and maybe help you get by. Okay. Now, if you own a home and you're thinking, I want to buy a new home, this is a situation me and my family are in. If you want to own a home and you're thinking, I want to go buy a new home, it really doesn't matter if you buy today or if you buy later. The only real difference is, if you own a home that's worth 300,000 and you're going to downsize to a $200,000 home, maybe you're in that downsizing phase, then you can wait, and if house prices go up, you've won because grown your home at 300,000 versus growing a $200,000 home in value. So the way percentages and return on investment and those things work, the larger home value does more than a lower home value. But really, it doesn't matter if you're already a homeowner, if you buy today or if you buy in the future. You need to buy when you're ready to. And the reason for that is, the house you own today, if prices keep going up, it's going to go up. So if prices keep going up, holding on to your home and waiting allows you to win with this house. You might lose because the home you're thinking of buying is going to go up, but they're going to go up roughly the same amount. So you're not really going to win or lose. Same thing if they go down. Like if home values go down and your home goes down in value, as long as it doesn't end up upside down, which if you've been there long enough, you shouldn't have that problem. But if it goes down in value, the home you're buying is going to go down in value. So you might think, man, we lost all this equity, but you also don't have to spend as much on the new home you're buying. So I don't think it matters if you're already a homeowner, whether you buy today or whether you buy in the future. The thing that really matters is, can you afford the new home? All in all, I don't see home prices becoming more affordable without a few other things happening. You need to build more houses. That's not always easy. Or we need to bring sellers back into the marketplace so that we can get people downsizing more or people moving out of neighborhoods more. Interest rates are going to kind of house lock some people, so we may not see that. So I think we see house prices continue to go up. I think we see interest rates kind of stand firm where they're at. So if you're thinking about buying a house or interested in buying a house, make sure the first foremost thing you do is just make sure that your budget's in place. If your budget's in place and you can afford the home, buy it. If not, don't. All of us, we always think that our home is our biggest investment. It's really not. It's not an asset. You're going to lose money on your home because the thing you're not taking into account is all the money you're spending on upkeep and taxes and insurance on that house. You're going to lose money on the home. Don't think of it as an investment. Because the truth is, at the end of the day, when you get to retirement and it's time to maybe use that investment, you're not going to want to do it. People don't want to sell their home to further their retirement. People don't want to borrow against it to further their retirement. So if you're not willing to use it later down the road, then it's really not an investment. Hopefully it helps you get a little bit of an answer of what I think is going to happen in relation to housing costs. I don't see any relief in the near future. I think they're going to keep continuing to go up.